Hello guys, have you ever seen images of those Chinese style buildings that look traditional but are actually built with modern materials and technologies? Do you know this type of a modern Chinese architecture style indeed were invented by foreigners? Yes, the founders of this architectural style were mainly British and American architects who started exploring this as early as 1906. Today, I'm going to show you the earliest survival building group of this style, the older campus of West China Union University in Chengdu City. This is based on my own research. You probably won't hear this from anywhere else. So let's dive in. West China Union University was founded in 1906, with its buildings gradually completed from 1910. The campus was designed by British architect Fred Rowntree. It thus pioneered a completely new architectural trend that lasts till today. That is, combining classical and regional Chinese architectural styles with modern building technology. This is not only the largest but also the earliest practice of this style in China that still exists today. You might spot buildings like this occasionally across China. They are full of distinct Chinese architectural elements. Think the People's Auditorium in nearby city of Chongqing and the Beijing West Railway Station, or the iconic examples of Taipei in Hong Kong and in Guangzhou. In many cities in China today, without at least one of these buildings, it almost feels like something's missing. They just feel so Chinese. My background as an artist and art historian gives me a unique focus on architecture and art forms, while my profession as a writer fuels my passion for history and culture. My videos document the lives and experiences of ordinary Chinese people and explore intellectual ideas that aren't often discussed online. Today, I am presenting this West China University campus I just visited in September 2025. This is Chengdu City, historically and contemporarily the most important city in Western China. In fact, Chengdu's connection to Europe and to the world go way back than you might guess. Before and after the Opium War in 1840s, Europeans started entering this region. In 1890, the Yantai Treaty supplementary articles between China and Britain opened Chongqing as a treaty port. In 1891, Chongqing Customs was officially established, marking its formal opening. As a Yangtze River city, Chongqing was the gateway to Chengdu, the real target for Westerners who wanted to use it as a base to expand missionary work as well as trade across Western China. Located on the plain, Chengdu has long been the cultural, political, economic, and military center of Western China. So many missionary groups working in the West chose Chengdu as their base. That is why, led and hosted mainly by American and Canadian churches, various Christian denominations decided to found a university in Chengdu, West China Union University, in 1906, and opened in 1910 as a liberal arts college. Here's the thing, missionaries in China back then had a strong cultural sensitivity. Even though the missionary universities they founded followed a modern university model and included religious teachings, they actively incorporated traditional Chengdu architectural elements into their designs. The architect hired was British architect Fred Rowntree. When designing the campus, Fred Rowntree clearly referenced the then Chinese government university, Sichuan University, which was in the same city and less than a mile away. Sichuan University at that time was housed in the Imperial City building at Chengdu's historical core. It was transformed from the imperial examination halls and parts of the governor's mansion. These buildings carried deep cultural meaning and historical continuity. So West China Union University drew heavily from Sichuan University's architectural style. The clock tower, completed in 1915, had been the tallest building in Chengdu for half a century, conveying a significance of European religion and Chinese reference. As for the whole campus, you can see an interesting blend. A modern Western structural skeleton with an interior rich in local Sichuan architectural features. Fun fact, after the 1920s, Sichuan University moved from city center to a new campus. By then, they realized West China Union University's modern buildings were more practical. So they turned around and used this missionary university's architecture as a reference for their new campus. This modern Chinese-style architecture among Chengdu's universities continued all the way to a 1954 building at the Chengdu Institute of Technology. Today, these three universities mentioned here have merged into one. It's called Sichuan University. The new Sichuan University said in its website that the architectural cross-references among the three schools signaled a reasoning behind their inner connections and eventual merger. Well, that is very true, at least from the architectural side. West China Union University left enduring legacy far beyond its architectural style and buildings. For example, it launched China's first dentistry program in university in the 1920s, with an advanced affiliated dental hospital. To this day, its dentistry program is still ranked number one in China, beating even top medical universities in Beijing and Shanghai, which have more geographical and political advantages. And back to the architecture. Why do I say West China Union University's buildings pioneered modern Chinese architectural style? Because they are the earliest large-scale surviving example of this design. Missionary universities operating in a culturally different place like China had that extra cultural sensitivity and the desire to show respect for local culture. So they had more motivation to experiment. Later, over a dozen cities in China saw missionary universities adopt this East-West blended style. Take Furen Catholic University in Beijing, for example. It carried on the 17th missionary ideology in China and used a similar fusion style with Beijing locals architecture in its buildings. These missionary university buildings, blending Western architectural ideas with Eastern elements, are a classic example of successful two-way cultural exchanges. And it wasn't just architecture. These universities were educationally successful too, training countless talents and standing alongside national universities. Both two streams of universities formed China's early higher education backbones since the beginning of 20th century. This modern Chinese-style architecture soon influenced Chinese architects, many of whom studied architecture in the US or worked at foreign-owned architectural firms. Being more familiar with Chinese style, these local architects helped spread and develop the style across China. I had made a video before called China's Caste System and Universities. The video talked about how China's universities today emphasize educational background, creating a hierarchy almost like a caste system. As in that video, the top two universities in China, aka China's equivalent of Oxford and Cambridge, or Harvard and MIT, both date back to the early 20th century and feature this modern Chinese style. One of the two, the Beijing University, China's most famous university, its campus of today was indeed a missionary university and was designed by an American architect. In fact, some of China's most beautiful university campuses today were once missionary universities, and their pioneering modern Chinese style architecture is the reason why these campuses are so admired today. Most missionary universities were nationalized after the founding of New China, but their architectural heritage and even educational heritage lived on. Let me know in the comments below if you want to hear more about the campus designs of missionary universities in China, their history, the cultural exchange stories, or missionaries in China. A lot of my research deals with the visual art elements in these areas, so do drop a comment. Of course, over the years, this big roof modern style Chinese architecture has faced criticism. Some say it's just modern architecture in a Chinese costume in appearance, not real modern in nature. In the meantime, this type of building cost more to construct than the sleek functionalism of Bauhaus. But in my opinion, that's utterly subjective. Here is the irony. China has rushed through so many changes. Wars, Japanese invasion, civil war, the Cultural Revolution, and especially the economic boom since the 1980s, etc. These changes are so many that traditional architecture has all but vanished. These missionary university buildings, once seen as foreign influenced, are now some of the few remaining historically Chinese structures. Today, Chinese cities are in the modern architectural race, with skyscrapers seen as symbol of modernism as well as profit-generating trend. The few remaining traditional neighborhoods increasingly turned into Disneyland tourist attractions. In this context, understanding this modern Chinese style architecture matters. Mainstream society might not focus on this type of Chinese modern style that much, but the state recognizes importance. Chengdu claims a 3,000-year history, with many ancient street names remaining as the reminder. It has changed so much during the last 60 to 70 years, and Chengdu city is almost unrecognizable as an old city, lacking anything that is historical. So, when it comes to architectural heritage, the modern Chinese style left by West China Union University as a missionary university are now some of the very few reminiscent of ancient architecture style. History sure has a sense of humor, doesn't it? In year 2013, these 9 buildings of former West China Union University has been designated as China's national heritage, the highest status of China's cultural heritage and cultural relics.